Hello, farmers, and welcome to the harvest season. My name is Al,
And I'm Micah.
and we're here today to talk about farming games. Woo!
We did it. Always farming games.
Always. Sometimes more farming than others. This is very
Yeah.
definitely a farming game episode. Uh, yeah. Um. So, welcome, Micah.
Thanks for having me. Again,
It's good to have you. Always.
it's always a pleasure to be on. This is one of my favorite genres of game, so it's always a pleasure to talk about it with somebody.
It's good. It's always good to have you. You're a joy to talk to about farming games.
Aw, shucks.
Today, we're going to talk about Harvest Moon One World, the brand new Natsume Harvest Moon game.
We might be the only two that are talking about it.
That's not true. I did see a zero punctuation episode on Harvest Moon One World.
Oh,
So
sure.
There are other people talking about it. It was actually a very useful thing to watch because it didn't change my mind about anything, but it gave me a good way of thinking about how I was feeling about the game.
Okay.
I was like, yes, that's the thing I was thinking about. I couldn't put it into words. That's useful. Thank you.
I remember when we were talking about it, I had said, if we were talking on Twitter about it, I said, if you need someone to talk to about it, and I think you'd said, yeah, nobody else wants to talk. Nobody else is buying it, so
Yeah.
none of the usuals are buying it. So
everybody that I've talked to about this is like, I look forward to hearing the episode about it. I think people want to know whether they should buy it or not.
Right.
But before that, we're going to talk about the news. And first of all, Micah, what have you been playing recently?
I have been playing. Well, as of recording this, I've been playing Monster Hunter Rise.
Ooh.
As I think you know, but maybe nobody else that's listening knows. Maybe some people know. I am a big Monster Hunter fan. I used to do co-host a Monster Hunter podcast called The Carve with Steve of It's the Pokemon Podcast. Super effective. I have been a longtime Monster Hunter fan, and I have been waiting patiently for a new Switch Monster Hunter.
Patiently, really?
I haven't been like screaming about it. I guess I haven't been.
That's true.
I guess patient in the context of how patient people really are these days.
Politely waiting.
Looking at the Pokemon official Twitter replies, I feel like I'm a pretty patient person.
Oh my
word. So I loved Monster Hunter World, which came out on console, PS4 and Xbox One and PC and things like that, but was not available on the Switch. And the last one on the Switch was Generations Ultimate, which was a port of a 3DS game.
Yes.
And that was, I want to say, when it originally debuted in Japan, it was 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. And it's been 3 years since World came out. So I have been...
Was the Switch port not Japan only?
It initially was, and then they released it way after.
Right.
And it wasn't announced that it was going to be released in the US at the time of release in Japan. It was kind of a mystery, so we wound up porting it so that we could talk about it on the pod. We wound up buying the Japanese version,
right,
importing, not porting, and we struggled through trying to navigate Japanese menus as non-Japanese speaking fans, and there were some really good people in the community that did translation guides, but
right.
And I mean, it's like anything, like when it's a game that you're familiar with, you can navigate it pretty well without having to know exactly what the menu says. But this is the first real Switch proper Monster Hunter, and it's everything that I was hoping it would be, and so I have been getting very little sleep the last few days since it launched, and that's mostly what I've been playing. That, and also, as of recording this, it's been out for a few days now, the Story of Seasons, which we won't really talk about much today.
Yes. Yeah, I have specifically not been playing that game so that I don't end up in a situation that you are going to be in where you're trying really hard not to talk about it.
Yeah. Or confusing mechanics, because there are too many farming games that are available at one time.
I know. Next time, Natsume and Marvelous, please release your games further apart.
Just, even like a month would be good.
Yeah, it was fine if you were in Japan, because they were about a month apart in Japan.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, not here. We're like 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yep.
Oh.
2
Anyway.
weeks, and then like a couple days from Monster Hunter? Come on. Give me specifically a break.
I'm not really sure those... I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like on the Venn diagram of genres that game people play, I don't think the farming game and Monster Hunter ones overlap a huge amount.
The intersection is not particularly...
I have played a Monster Hunter game once. I think I played a demo of one of them. And it suffers for me personally. It suffers the same way that something like Skyrim does, in that I feel like combat is not really me battling. It's kind of me vaguely telling someone else to do some stuff, and they kind of do some stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's like, it's kind of, you're either end up button mashing, or like there's probably some more complicated stuff you could do, but I feel like with a game that's heavy combat, it needs to be like I press a button and you do a very specific thing, and I can kind of dodge around really quickly, and it needs to be agile for me, I think.
Yeah, you just gotta go in and flail and hope for the best.
Like that. I don't like that. It was like part of the problem is that so Breath of the Wild was the first game that I got that had a combat that like actually worked for me.
Okay, sure.
So of course everything that I play now, I just compare to that, because that to me is like perfect. So
I mean that's an accurate assessment in my book, but
I love being able to do like the dodging and like the different ways of hitting, and like your very quick dodging that you can then get a rush in and stuff like that. I really like that. It's the same reason that I like the Spider-Man games. They're kind of similar in that you can just, it's not as accurate. It's much more fast paced. So it's more button mashy, but it's button mashy with a purpose, in that it's like, I know that I'm pressing, like I can keep pressing this dodge button and moving away from them, and then go in for an attack and then dodge again.
Sure.
Rather than games where it's literally just like, just throw your sword around. It'll hit something eventually.
It'll happen. At some point you'll get it.
I'm glad people enjoy them, but like, I can't get into that myself.
Yeah. It's definitely not for everyone. It's for me, much like farming games are also for me, which this week has made it very difficult to...
Yes.
Time management has not been my strong suit this week. So
No. I noticed that a little bit behind the scenes. We're what, 6 hours apart in time? You're 6 hours behind me, I think. And
I think so.
So when I got up this morning, I sent Micah a little message just to confirm timings, because also European daylight saving time just came in today, so that always confuses things. And then got a message back from Micah, and I was like, I don't understand how you're awake.
Yeah, he said go to bed. I was
right.
like, I don't sleep, Al.
It's like, go to bed. We're recording in like 12 hours. But anyway, good fun.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't know what I've been playing. Harvest Moon.
Yeah,
that's about it.
You've got quite a... I mean, we'll talk about it, but you got... I was surprised to hear how much you had played it.
Yeah. We'll get into that. I'm very pleased with what I've done though. But yeah, cool. That's what we've been playing. Oh, I've been playing a little bit of Littlewood as well, but
I was just gonna say maybe this is like a segue into the news section. But have you played any now that there's news for it for you?
Well, let's say what the news is first.
Sure.
Welcome to the news section. Blah blah blah. Littlewood is finally out in Europe and Australia, only like a month after everywhere else.
Yeah, no kidding. I didn't even realize that it was such a huge gap.
I know it was. I've no idea what the issue was behind the scenes, but clearly something went wrong. Like a few days before the release, Sean on Twitter was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but it looks like the release is only going to come out in America and Canada, and everywhere else will come later." And then somewhere, I can't remember where it was, there was another region, maybe Brazil or something like that, where it came out a couple of weeks later. And then it was still another couple of weeks before it came out in Europe. And I was dying. I was like, this was the time, because it was originally coming out like 2 weeks before Harvest Moon came out. So I was like, great, I've got like 2 weeks solid Littlewood, and then like 2 weeks solid Harvest Moon, and then, multiple weeks Story of Seasons. And that didn't happen. And I was very sad. But so yeah, it's now finally out in Europe. It came out a few days ago, and I have played a little bit of it. I've maybe put a couple hours into it. I wanted to make sure I was definitely happy with where I was in Harvest Moon before I went on to Littlewood.
Sure.
Because that game is great, and it's still great. It's really good on Switch. So
I was gonna ask, you played it prior to the Switch release, right? You played it on PC?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
This was my Switch release, was my first experience with it, which I think we talked about previously on the podcast when I was on, and there was Littlewood news that it was coming to the Switch or whatever, and I had said that I never played it, and I was waiting for the Switch version.
Yeah.
Really good
game.
Have
you played it yet?
Yes, I did. I played. I didn't play a ton, but I played a little bit. It came out right around my wife's birthday, and so there was a lot of stuff going on. But I bought it while she was at work. I bought it and downloaded it to her Switch because I knew that she would like it as a birthday gift, and she absolutely loved it. I was shocked how much she was playing it, because it was kind of like not really like a gamble, because it's a very cute farming sim, which is exactly what she likes, but it wasn't anything that she had heard of. Or was like anticipating, so I was unsure how much she would like it. But yeah, she played way more than I did, and she really loved it.
Yeah. No, it's really good, and as a port, it's a really good port. I have one issue with it, and that's that it doesn't have button remapping, and to bring up the menu, you press the B button, which just feels so wrong.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I don't understand that design choice, and it drives me insane. But what are you going to do? Nothing's perfect. But other than that, like, it runs really well. I don't feel like the controls are bad other than that opening the menu. And it doesn't feel like it's a kind of missing anything. Obviously, I'm not a huge amount through it, but like everything I've played so far has been just as good as it was on the PC.
Sure.
And it still has its charm. And it's adorable little game.
It really is
good fun.
That sprite work is so nice. It's very comfy.
I love the size of their heads as well.
Yeah.
Very big heads.
I really, really like, we don't have to talk a ton about it, because I know that you've discussed it at length previously, but for my initial impression of it, I really like how quickly you're able to just like do things in the game without a ton of like tutorial or...
Yeah.
It just puts you in it pretty quickly, and it's very easy to understand. It's a good game.
Yeah. No, I agree. I also like it's different in that, like, time only moves when you do things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like your day is based on how many things you do.
So
you can like walk around and talk to people and nothing happen. No time doesn't progress, and it's not till you like break rocks or cut down trees or farm or whatever that time actually moves, which is really
very relaxing in that way.
Yeah, definitely.
And I love that.
In
a world of farming games that the clock is constantly ticking, and it's
so
can be very stressful.
Can I get home in time? I don't know.
Yeah. Am I gonna make it before I pass out or whatever?
It's the most exactly. And also like the penalty in Littlewood for passing out is literally just, your time bar is like a quarter of the way full already. That's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like the combining essentially what it does is it combines time and stamina. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like one less thing to think about, which in a game that is about calm and about just like slowly building up this town and slowly doing these things, like that's perfect. Like you don't have to have a million different things that you're paying attention to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's good. Yeah, so Littlewood, if you're in Europe or Australia, it's finally out there. It's also out in all the other places that it's going to be out. I lose track of how many different regions there are in the eShop. Go see if it's there or not. Although if you live in a country where games don't generally release, I suspect you'll probably have an account from a different country. The beauty of the no region locks on the Switch.
Yeah. It's still, we were just talking about this before we started the podcast, but distribution of it's so odd to me that there's that much of a delay in especially digital only distribution that you would get it so much later than everyone else did. But
it's all these kind of like red tape things within. I suspect what ended up happening was like either Sean didn't realize that there's different eShops and then uploaded and went, right, that's fine, it's going to release, and then realized, oh wait, no, it's only one, and therefore then had to go through the process for all the other ones as well. And of course there's a review process for every single region for some stupid reason. It was either something like that, or it was like uploaded it to every region, but like for some reason there's like a different team that decides on different regions, and therefore like they said no to it in one of them.
Sure.
Or something. Like, because I know there was something about the icon when it first released was this really weird icon. And it kind of didn't show you what the game was. It was like literally just an in-game carrot. And apparently he'd misunderstood what they meant in that field. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was something like the North American eShop people were like, oh yeah, that's fine. But the other ones were like, oh no, we don't like that icon. You need to redo the whole process with a new icon. And of course it takes multiple weeks and you have to wait weeks for them to actually approve these things. And so as soon as you get anything where they deny it and then you have to restart it, that's a month gone easily,
Yeah.
So we'll never know what the issue was, but it takes a long time for these things.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's out now. That's the important thing. Speaking of things that are out now, there's an update to Story of Seasons Pioneers of Olive Town. There've been a couple of patch releases, I think, which the non-Japanese versions are up to date with the Japanese one as well, fixing a bunch of bugs and issues, quality of life improvements and stuff in the game. I don't know too much about them. I know that there's some issues in terms of like loading screens being really long and stuff like that aren't ideal that they're improving.
Yeah. I had read an article before it released that was talking about the issues that people were having specifically for the Japanese version and what the big complaints were. And it sounded like things that weren't necessary. I mean, one of the things that people would like loading times sounded like they were an issue. Yeah. And just like little functionality issues here and there, but some of the things were just like quality of life issues too that people had, like that there's no character portraits. I remember reading one of them was that there's no character portraits for dialogue, so it's hard to tell what the emotion of the character is when you're talking to them. And another thing that I saw that people were kind of complaining about that I felt was like not really that big of a deal was that when you go to eat food in like the cafe or something, regardless of what you order, it always shows you eating like a plate of fish or like, which is like weird, sure, but it was such a minimal thing to me that I was like, I don't know, that doesn't really seem that bothersome, but
yeah, I think it was probably just like a bunch of all these things combined together.
Sure.
And it's kind of like, oh, and this, and this, and this. But I also feel like it's kind of like different bars for different developers, because we'll get into Harvest Moon in a bit. Like a lot of these things that are complaints about Pioneers of Olive Town, I'm like, yeah, that's not great, but also like it's way better than this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I know they've had a couple of patches for some bug fixes and stuff like that, and better loading times. I believe there is another update coming in the next few weeks that is meant to deal with some quality of life improvements, and also apparently there's some issues with the character AIs where they don't really do much. So like they kind of just stand still instead of moving around doing things.
Sure.
So I think they've said they're going to fix that as well.
Okay.
And they're also looking at trying to improve the loading times more as well. So they are aware of the issues and they are looking to fix them. So, yeah, if you're looking to buy the game, I wouldn't at this point. I would not be surprised. I would not judge you for waiting for another couple of patches or whatever to see what it is.
Yeah.
Don't buy it and then be annoyed if updates don't come out.
Right.
Never buy based on the fact that updates will be coming. Wait until we see what they're like and then go for it. Unless you're like us, where we're like, I'm going to play it anyway.
Right.
This we need to cover. We're going to cover it on the podcast, so we'll see what it's like. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd seen that too. That I saw a lot of people in that article that I read that was talking about the issues. Seen a lot of people in the comments saying, "Well, maybe I'll wait until the patches happen and stuff." There was no real like time frame that I saw, so I didn't even know going into it on day one if there was going to be a patch until.
Yeah.
The day of, I read that there was going to be a day one patch, and I was like, okay, well, at least they're going to fix, some of the stuff. Yeah, well,
this is the good thing. This is the good thing about there being the delay between the Japanese and everyone else, because, we'd already had some time for people to kick up a fuss,
right?
And, them have some development time and then get out a couple of patches. So yeah, we're up to date with what Japan have, which is good.
No quality of life improvements, but at least no game-breaking bugs.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, and less loading times.
Yeah.
But we will see. I don't often talk about what episodes are coming up, but we are planning on doing a Pioneers of Olive Town episode next episode. And I hope I don't regret saying that in this episode. So hopefully we'll get you information on that and how bad all these things are in more detail next episode. We shall see. That's not this episode though, because literally the game has been out for 2 days in Europe.
Yeah.
and even in
it was
America,
only,
it's like less than a week.
Out for 2 days before Monster Hunter came out here, so I'm suffering.
It's basically the same thing, right? Any farming in Monster Hunter?
Not in this one. There was at least not as far as I've seen. In World, you did have a small like garden farming area where you could grow and fertilize herbs and stuff that you would use to make potions, because there's a crafting system sort of where you make potions and you can make traps and things that you use in hunts. So they had in World, they had a little garden area that you could plant specific things and then fertilize them, and over the course of a couple hunts then they would grow and you would it would become self-sustaining that way.
Yeah.
But in this one so far, I don't see that feature, but maybe.
Well, we've covered games on the podcast for less farming than that. So. I'm not saying I'm going to do that, by the way, just making that clear. Listeners, I'm not saying I'm doing a Monster Hunter. I'm definitely not saying that. I do not commit to things on the podcast because you never know what's going to happen. Next, we've got another Animal Crossing update. This one has some custom design stuff in it. So you can design for more items. I think you can do the umbrella. You can do a fan. I think there's like a board you can do or something, like just a generic board.
Yeah, like a cutout, like standee.
Yeah,
they call it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fun. And also there are more custom design slots, so you can have more custom designs at one time,
which is great.
Yeah,
and much needed. That was the most exciting part for me. As you get to developing your island and putting a lot of like little patterns and stuff down on the ground to make things look unique. 25 slots runs out very, very quickly. So they have, I think,
it did
doubled
seem
now.
like
It's at 50.
surprisingly limited.
Yeah.
I think that was most of what the update was, wasn't it?
They also added in the functionality for the Sanrio. They added in the Sanrio villagers and items and the functionality for the Sanrio amiibo.
Yep. All that functionality that you can't play with.
Yeah.
Well, you can.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very, very rocky launch for the Sanrio cards in the US.
Yeah.
They just made it such a weird... It was, for anybody that doesn't know, it was specifically Target was the retailer, and it was only online pickup orders, which is just such a strange way to do that. But initially when I heard it, I was like, oh, that seems maybe like it will deter like scalping or, stop people from, at least to some extent, because you have to have an account. There's like a max order of 2. It's all happening at the same time. You have to like go into the store and pick it up. So maybe it will deter scalping to some degree, but I think that it was not necessarily just like this, just that there was a scalping issue, and more just that Target's website is complete garbage and continues to be complete garbage for handling large amounts of traffic, like an influx of traffic like that. And it was a disaster.
The problem is, right, I know what they're doing with this, but the problem is when you're locking features in a game behind a physical thing, you need to make that physical thing very common.
Yes.
Otherwise, people are going to be annoyed.
Yep.
Like, it's
absolutely.
Make it as common as muck, or don't do it.
Yes, I agree.
Ridiculous.
If I had to guess, I would assume that part of this is that it was originally only a collaboration in Japan. They originally never made it here. They were made, the Sanrio cards were made for the 3DS New Leaf. And never made it here. And I am assuming that they just had the opportunity to put them in because they had some functionality for them. If you scanned them prior to this update, you would get a poster that was like the key art that they made for the collaboration for that specific Sanrio character. So I'm assuming that, they're whatever the collaboration requirements were for the copyrights between Sanrio and Nintendo to get the collaboration to work in the US. I'm sure they were probably like, okay, we finally have the opportunity to do it, so let's just do it quickly. I guess, I don't know.
That's a really long way of saying they figured out how much money they could make.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
So at some point they're meant to be coming out here as well, but they've not even announced when.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, I'm not getting it, am I? It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, they said that they were going to be re-releasing actual amiibo cards too, and they just haven't yet. So I'm going to guess that at some point these things are going to be a lot more common, and I think there's going to be more production for it. I would guess that this is probably a like low effort way for them to see how successful amiibo cards can do again.
That's fair.
That they know more how many to produce. So because I think the first round of it, they produced a ton of them, and they didn't sell super well. But
I think that's the thing is I get it. Manufacturing is difficult, and you don't want to end up with more than you can sell.
Right.
But also like you have to combat that with you are offering something and you're locking it behind this physical paywall.
Yep.
Like
100%.
Like it's not like you can just, do something else legally. Like
right. Yeah.
It is illegal to copy and try and share the data on the amiibo cards. So like it's you make it difficult and then you don't even make it easy. Like, you make it paid and then you don't even make it easy to do that.
Right.
That's my issue. Manufacturing is difficult. Don't rely on manufacturing for your in-game content then.
Yes.
Is my issue with it.
I agree. However,
Whatever.
if you go to Etsy or whatever, you can buy third-party.
You can. We are not necessarily saying you should because of legal issues. Please don't sue us, Nintendo.
But if one
and you
were
definitely
to
will not find me doing that. Definitely not.
Yeah.
I would never do that.
Yeah. That thing that exists that
it may or may not exist, and it may or may not be a thing that people may or may not do.
Correct.
But you wouldn't find us saying you should do it. Well, Nintendo are never going to sponsor the podcast. So I believe there are also some additional Bunny Day items in the update. So just when you thought you were done with Bunny Day.
Oh, boy. I don't even want to think about it.
I think that starts today as we're recording.
I think so too, yeah.
Good fun.
Good stuff.
Next, we have an update for Ooblets 0.7. It is mostly quality of life improvements. So, yeah, go get it. I'll have a link in the show notes to the actual stuff. If you've not played Ooblets, the updates won't really mean much to you, so I won't talk about them too much here.
Yeah, I
presume you
still
have
not played it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep saying at some point I will play it, but
you're waiting for that switch.
Yeah, maybe that would be the thing that would get me to play it sooner rather than later, but yeah.
Well, I mean, not really sooner rather than later because it's not going to come out this year. At least.
Oh yeah,
they've not even announced if it's happening or not.
I guess
I feel like it probably will, but
I guess what I mean is I'm more likely to play the Switch version when it comes out than I will probably play the Xbox or PC version in the next 5 years.
Yeah, Micah, I was just being a pedantic idiot. It's I believe the 1.0 version coming out of early access will be the end of this year or early next year. So
okay,
if they end up doing a Switch version, which obviously they haven't said they are going to, it won't be till at least next year.
Sure. I always forget that it's still in early access.
I know. It's a really good early access game. I think what I really like about what they did was they didn't skimp on features and polish. They skimped on content. So you get a really nice, really well played game from the start. It's just reasonably small in terms of scope. So I think that's a really good way of doing it. So you don't get into a game and you're like, oh, it doesn't really play the way I want it to. You start it and you're like, oh, this is really good. I like how this plays. This is really nice and polished. And it's just, I want more of it. And then more comes out and it's great.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a good way to do it. And our final piece of news is that we have a release date for Deiland Pocket Edition on Switch. And that is coming out on the 15th of April.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Did you kickstart this one?
I did not. No, I missed it.
You did not.
But I am excited to play it. I had not, because it was it was released previously on mobile or PC?
Both, I think. I think I don't know. I lose track.
Yeah, and I had not heard it was prior to Summer and Mara, so I had not heard of the company until this developer until Summer and Mara. So I'm excited to try this now. Yeah. I know Bev has played it and she really liked it. But I also have not played it, and I was like, oh, look, I really should get back to. I actually own it on Steam, but I've never played it because I just not a fan of playing games on my computer. I'm not really either, unless I have to, unless I'm required.
Well, that's
I'm not really either.
Yeah, that's exactly why it is. Like I played Littlewood on the PC because I wanted to cover the game earlier, and same with Ooblets. But it's like I will play them much more on Switch.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, 15th of April, not long now. Slightly later than the original plan of March, but like 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, so that's pretty good. And I'm not complaining because that gives me more time between game releases in spring.
Yeah. Little gaps here and there. We take what we can get.
Yeah. Give me a break. Anyway, that's the news. Ooh. Shall we talk about Harvest Moon: One World?
I want to say that I'm ready.
It's what we're here for.
I don't know that I'll ever actually be ready, but I'm about as ready as I can be
for this game
to talk about any modern Harvest Moon game.
All right, let's talk about the simple stuff first. So,
okay.
Let's see. Quick overview for the game. It's a farming game. But the hook in this one, because as we mentioned, there's always a hook for farming games nowadays. The hook is that you are in a world where nobody knows how crops work, so they don't know how to grow things, and there are it's like a larger world than most farming games are, so you can move around and take your farm with you, which is an interesting feature. And
yes,
we'll talk about that more specifically in the mechanics. But that's is that a good overview of the game?
Yeah. I always love this concept of no one knows how farming works until the protagonist shows up.
It's interesting. Yeah, we can talk about this bit just now because we're talking about the overview. It's interesting because you'd feel like it would make more sense in a different setting. I like the idea of it, but also like it's not like some kind of, dystopian future or anything like that where people have just like forgotten about crops.
Right.
It's set in a similar style to most farming games. Like it's not that different. And like they kind of are growing crops in many cases. And so the fact that it starts out making it sound like nobody understands crops, it's more like people kind of don't really understand how they work and don't understand how to do them properly.
Yeah.
It's not like they make it sound in the very beginning like they don't. Oh yeah, so hey, spoilers. There are going to be spoilers all through this, right? Like, let's be honest. We know, listener, that you don't actually want to play this game, right? If you do actually want to play the game, stop now, go play the game. There's going to be spoilers all the way through this because we can't really talk about it without that.
Right.
But yeah, so they kind of make it sound at the very beginning like people kind of don't believe that crops grow from seeds and stuff. But throughout the game, there are examples of people actually knowing that and just not being very good at it.
Right.
So it's kind of confused.
It's like
I don't think it really knows what it is.
Yeah, it's like almost that kind of. I feel like this is like a trope in farming games, where it's like nobody has like the right touch for farming or making like getting crops to grow until the protagonist shows up and has this superhuman ability to be able to have really successful crops, and everyone's blown away by it, which is like just kind of a consistent trope. But this is like also another layer of no one really understands why nothing grows or why things don't. Minor spoiler for something we'll probably get to, but how like in one of the areas the fish just aren't around anymore. And there's no real like explanation why, I guess. It's just that until you show up and help, people can't function in this world or sustain themselves.
The fish one was an interesting one because that kind of had a good point, which was basically like they've kind of over farmed or removed too much of an area and kind of basically deserted that area, and that has left not enough nutrients in the soil, which leads to there being like it's like the knock-on effects of like climate change and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
I think it did a really good job of. But then there's like other ones where it's like literally time has stopped flowing.
Yes.
So it's a bit confused as to what point it's trying to get across, and I just feel like I can't take that part of the story seriously when like you as a protagonist believe that things grow from seeds because of a book that you have and you've read, but then the ridiculous thing about that is like you literally meet the author of that book in the journey, and they're having issues with growing things. And so you're like,
I don't know that I've gotten to
understand.
that point, but that's
oh, you
funny.
haven't, have you? Sorry,
I don't think
spoiler.
So. No, that's okay. I am aware that you have already beaten the story, right?
It's so weird, and I like the hook and I like the idea, but I don't think you can do it in the same setting that normal farming games are, I think is the problem.
Yeah.
I think it would need to be something else where people get their food from elsewhere, because where are all these people getting these food from?
Yeah. I mean, they have cafes and cooking recipes and stuff. Where is that all coming from in this world where things just don't exist? That reminds me, though, that game does exist that you are talking about, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it was called Innocent Life, a futuristic Harvest Moon was the subtitle for it. It was a Harvest Moon game, but it was set like way in the future, where everything was machines and technology, and it was basically that. It was like crops were extinct, and you had to use technology to try to like revive them. So like in that setting, makes total sense. It works. In this setting,
definitely
not quite as successful.
It's really weird. It's really weird. There's one area. I presume you haven't been to the wintry area, the tundra area.
I have not. The last area that I got to was European themed town. Baumkuchen or whatever. I don't know what the Baumkuchen is a cake. I don't know what this is called. What is it?
The place with the volcano.
Does it have a volcano? Yeah, it's the area right after the desert.
Well, so part of the issue is actually it's not linear.
Oh.
So you can, I don't know, did you ever notice in the first area there are 2 bridges, one of which you have to rebuild?
Mm-hmm.
If you go up the one that you have to rebuild, you can get straight to Lebkuchen without going through the desert.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, so I thought that's what that was. I just never got to that point because one of the things that you're required to get to rebuild that bridge is ginkgo lumber, which I'd never encountered.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you can grow it really early on.
Yeah, I was unaware of that. So
yeah, I'm the sort of person when I see something that can be done, I do it. Like I do it before I leave the area. So I got to Lebkuchen before I even got to the second area, which is just a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're getting quite detailed into the story. Let's leave that bit for the end, because I think we need to talk about all the mechanics and stuff beforehand. So we'll do the 2 quick sections first: graphics and music. Mm-hmm. Graphics, meh. I think a big meh on that one.
Yeah, it's
weird.
That's in my notes. I wrote graphically weird. Period.
Yeah.
That's the. So I had some bugs, and I'll talk about those. But my like initial impression of the graphics was that the character models, it looks like they put a lot of time into the characters, but way less in everything else. So like the crops look okay, but the environments are so plain and empty. Yeah. That it just feels
it's literally like green, one shade of green everywhere.
And it's
in one area.
It's like they tried to it's almost like they developed this world map, and then they said, "Oh, we don't have enough to fill it, so let's just space everything." It's like when you're writing an essay and you're like, "Oh, I don't have enough. It's not long enough, so I'm just going to double space everything to extend the page count." Like
It's like with Pokemon games, right? The towns are quite small. They only have a few houses.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine if they did that, but like houses just had massive spaces between them.
Yes.
So like the towns were triple the size with nothing extra in them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is, and it's really weird.
I was playing it, and a friend was watching me play it over Discord, and he'd said, "I'm so confused by this game because the characters look nice, and then I look 2 feet to the left, and it's like the plainest looking environments I've ever seen. It just looks so underdeveloped. But
it's
then
like literally the grass, it doesn't even have a texture. It's
right.
like literally just a
It's
color
just
film.
flat. Yeah. And then there's other little things too, like I mean, not even really little. Like they're pretty glaring and noticeable when you encounter them. But like textures, for one thing that I noticed uh, pretty consistently was doors on buildings that you see just like walking through a town or whatever. The texture for like the light on the window, or the texture for like the wood paneling or whatever, is so low res compared to everything else. It's like so improperly scaled.
Yeah.
Like inside your house looks great. The textures are scaled properly and everything looks okay. The second you step outside, though, any building outside is so improperly scaled that it makes everything around you kind of look blurry, but the character is again really well textured and really well modeled. It just feels like there were some very like big cut corners.
Yeah, it's almost like two different teams. Like one team did inside and one team did outside, and one team did the character models, and like the team that did the outside just didn't really care.
Yeah.
I like, it is just so fascinatingly sparse and boring, and like it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to say much about it because it's just so meh. It's not even like it's not even like I hate it. It's just like disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, there's like almost like it would be, if it didn't look as lazy as it does, it would almost be like charming.
Yeah.
But it's just so lazy that it loses whatever charm. I mean, there's still like, there is a level of charm to it. I shouldn't say that like it's like, completely awful to look at. It's really not. It's just not remarkable in any way.
Yeah. I also found, I don't know whether you've come across this or not, because I only found it like near the end of the game, is that after a while it starts to be really, like, it freezes very often for me now.
Oh.
So like I will be like talking to someone and it just, everything freezes and I can't continue the conversation, and then it'll resume for like 2 seconds, and if I don't click like the next part of the conversation, it'll freeze again. And like when I'm running between areas, it will just freeze. And I did not have this issue for like the first 3 quarters. It never happened once.
I haven't.
And then suddenly it's happening like every 10 minutes. It's like when the more of the game you unlock, it's like suddenly there's more. It's getting into memory, and then it can't cope with all that, despite the fact that you're only in one area at a time. So why would unlocking these other areas cause these massive issues?
Right.
But it never happened, and now suddenly it does all the time.
Yeah, that's I haven't experienced that, but that makes sense, and it's not surprising to me to hear that. I
legitimately thought it crashed multiple times, but you wait and it resumes. And it's fine.
I'll be curious to see at what point. I'll watch out for that, and I'll see at what point then that starts to kick in for me. But I'm not anticipating any big updates to fix any bugs or anything, but maybe, who knows.
I've not heard anything from them.
Yeah,
but I do know they have DLC. But I'm not gonna buy it.
Yeah, I can't.
I don't want more of this.
Don't think I could justify that. I did have some big weird graphic glitches, though. I had one in specific where I outran the loading for the map, and I just wound up in like a black abyss. Just like didn't load in the world around me, and I had to wait for it to like catch up and load everything in.
I've had issues like that where you like warp somewhere and like it will be slowly loading in the textures as well, rather than like staying on black until it's got everything in memory. I had that as well.
Yeah, it's really it was like in an area that I had already been to. It was very strange. Yes. It was like, the area on the left side of the plains where the bear frequents sometimes, where there's like the apple trees and stuff. I was running down that pathway to get back to my farm, and it just I just like ran off the. I just ran into an abyss, and that was it. It was still functioning the same. It's just that nothing was there,
That's
and
really
then
funny.
it slowly loaded it in. Which
Yeah.
I had seen other people talk about that too, so that was kind of weird. This isn't a graphic glitch, but this is like it's probably not even a glitch. It's just like how they developed it, that like how they coded it, that it just is a weird thing. But I've noticed that when you save it, when you go to, at the end of the day, you go into your house and you know, like every other Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons, you write in your journal and go to sleep, and then wake up the next day and it saves the game. This will save and then sleep. So what it does is, instead of resuming
so annoying
the next day, it resumes right before you go to bed. So like if you finish for the day and you're done playing and you turn the game off tomorrow, when you turn it on again, it'll load you in at like 11 p.m. before you go to sleep, instead of like
it's the
next
weirdest
day.
thing.
It's just like so jarring to have to like remember what, you know, whether or not you had like done everything, or like it's just weird.
It's literally because like the save and sleep, what they've done is literally just, it shows the normal save dialogue, and then you exit it and it sleeps.
Yeah.
Instead of doing a thing like every other game does that saves when you sleep, which is progress the game, tell you what you've done, and save the new state so that when you load up, you're awaking. That's what you expect. But it's again, we're going to come across this multiple times. I think it's just a case of just the project managers just not prioritizing things like that, and just going, no, let's do the easy thing. We'll do the quick thing, and we'll just get that out there, and that happening, and that's it's really jarring, especially the first time you do it.
Yeah,
I agree with that one.
I will say, I'm looking at the game now as we talk about it, just to you know, have like some refreshers and stuff, and I am noticing that like more and more there's texture stuff that I maybe didn't notice early on, like inside the barn, there's, you know, like the hay piles are just
they're literally just a texture
quality
on the floor.
It's even
there's
the
loads
sign
of stuff like
on
that.
the barn with the like cow face is super low res. It's just all strange little things.
Regarding the saving, I also had an annoyance with the saving, in that it does the annoying thing where like you save in a specific slot, and then when you load a game, you can save in any of the slots.
Oh, yeah.
And so like, but it defaults to the slot beneath the one that you last saved in.
Right.
So if you just quickly go and save, click, you then save in a different slot.
Yeah.
By default.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't understand games that do this, because it's like, there is a very small feature that you get from this where you can like, you know, save different states of the same game. But that is such a niche feature.
Yeah.
Most people don't want that. Like, very few people want that. And it just leads to this really annoying thing where you end up having the same game in multiple states accidentally. And it's just dreadful. I ended up with this with Deiland Story of Seasons, had the same thing. And I don't want the same game in multiple states. What is this? Why don't just load a game up, and when you save, just overwrite it? Like, we've done this time and time again over decades. We've moved to this way where most good games now will just have a save, and when you save, it overwrites that save. Have multiple save files, that's good, but like, don't make me choose where to save every single time. It's so weird.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. It's a very, this is, as someone who would regularly save multiple save slots in something like Skyrim or Oblivion, where I had, you know, hundreds of different save slots that I just like.
Yeah.
So I you know, just in case that I didn't like something, I could go back to it. Did I ever use any of those 200 plus save states? No, but you know, I liked it for that. This is absolutely not necessary. I don't need it. Just let me load from my last saved
Yeah. At what
file.
point in a farming game are you like, actually, that decision that I made 5 days ago, I would like to do the different thing. Like, no, that's not a thing that you do. Like, you might occasionally go, oh, like I would very occasionally, if I muck one thing up in a day, I'll reset. But like, you don't need multiple save slots for that. You just need the one.
Right.
Like, you only need multiple save slots if there are like branching things that you want to try out multiple of them and see which one works out the best.
Right.
And nobody's doing that. Certainly not with Harvest Moon. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. The last graphics thing I also had is, have you noticed the disappearing villagers thing?
Oh, no, I don't think What?
So this is... So
Maybe.
obviously you have...
Your
villagers have... Your villagers have the usual thing that villagers have, where they have their routines and they go to different places.
Yes.
They're pretty simple routines, but that's fine. We're used to that in these games. But instead of walking from one place to another, as they do in good farming games, they teleport.
Yep. Yeah.
You will be talking to someone and they'll literally just disappear on you.
Yes.
And you're like, where did they go? And you have no idea where they are. So like in a game where they're walking, you can follow them if you want to see where they go. But like you can literally be talking to someone and then you finish talking to them and then you're getting out a gift to give to them and they're gone.
Yep.
And you're like, where do I go for them now? I have no clue.
They're gone. Yeah, it's
so
really
jarring and so weird. I've also had multiple times where just their textures just didn't load in. So I would be walking and like there's something in my way and I can't see it, and then pop, they just pop up. the collision detection was there. They weren't. Really, really weird.
Yeah. Yes.
Have you got anything else graphics wise you want to chat about?
No, not really. I mean, the UI is like big and chunky, which is like not like a huge problem, but it just it's just that everything smacks of like amateurish, I guess. Like still. Yeah. Which is this was really pitched as like the like restart to the Harvest Moon name.
Yeah.
And there's just so much that feels so amateurish that it seems like a bad foot to start on.
Agreed. Music, I don't think there's a huge amount to talk about this. It's fine.
Yeah.
Some of the songs are catchy, some of them are a bit weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's got I wrote that it's the kind of just like the same farming sim music fare that everything has or has had in the past.
It's nothing special. It's nostalgia.
Yeah. No. Yeah, it's just it's your like kind of upbeat music for when you're carrying about your day and it repeats and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not unpleasant. Yep. It's good. It's like it's still good music. It's just not, anything really unique or like memorable, like you said, Stardew music.
I think there are a few of them that are kind of grating and I don't really like, but most of them are just fine.
Yeah.
It's not. It's the sort of game where I don't turn on the sound on this game. Like I'm fine listening to a podcast instead.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't need it. All right. Let's go through this massive list of mechanics. One thing that I found really interesting that I want to talk about in general. So tools usage is very interesting in this game, and I generally like it. This is probably going to be the most positive I am about this game. You don't choose a tool to do something. So you don't go, oh, I want to cut down that tree. Let's get the axe out and cut it down. Or, oh, I want to go plant some trees. Let me get the hoe out and hoe, and then let me get the seeds out and plant them, and then let me get the watering can and do it. It's context dependent. Mm-hmm. So if you have your little selection meter thing, square thing,
your
whatever is on something,
your front square. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah, whatever you know what I mean. The little thing that your focus square, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
If it's over a certain thing, it will do whatever is the right thing for that and whatever the state is. Mm-hmm. So if you go up to a piece of farming land that isn't hoed, would you call it? Plowed?
Tilled.
Plowed.
Yeah.
Tilled, sure, whatever. It will get the hoe out and it will do that.
Yeah.
And then if it is in that state and you have seeds, it will bring up a little thing to choose which seed to put in, and then if there's a seed, it will come up with the watering can to water it. If you go to a rock, it will automatically choose the hammer. If you go to a tree, it will automatically use the axe. So I generally liked this, and I think it is a really good thing that more games should look at. Please look at this and whether or not you think it should be something you should integrate into your games.
Mm-hmm.
There is one issue with it, in that I found myself a few times accidentally chopping down trees when I was trying to. So there are a few of the things you get off trees, like there's I think it's the cocoa beans and the walnuts. It's hard to tell the difference between this is ready and it's 1 day away from being ready.
Yeah.
And if you go to harvest a walnut tree that looks like it's ready, but it's actually 1 day away from being ready, you will cut down the tree.
Yeah.
So I've had a few cases of that, and that's a little bit annoying, and I'm not sure the best way that they can deal with that. But other than that one kind of niche situation, I love this.
Yeah, I like it for the most part. I feel like they did a lot of streamlining the process. I guess it's hard for me to talk about this without talking about like the overall scope of the game. So I don't know if you're okay with me getting into
We've already said spoilers, so I think we'll do whatever we need to do.
Okay.
Just go for it.
I think that the most positive thing I can say about this game for me is that this concept is great. This is a really unique way to go about making a farming game. And I really, really love the concept. And I like that they've streamlined some things. I'm not sure that for how much they've made for the game, how much content there is in the game, that I love the streamlining long term. So if this were a game that I would want to play on a consistent and regular basis, like a Story of Seasons or a Stardew, I feel like the elimination of that daily routine for specifically the farming aspect gives me less to do, I guess.
It's interesting because I guess it's not actually changing like the actions you do. It just changes like the selecting of the tool.
Sure. Yeah. I guess what I mean is that like I don't need to. Sure, there's like I haven't gotten to any of the tool upgrades, but there's not really anything that has required me to like upgrade anything yet at this point. At least there's nothing that's been like, oh, I have to have a better hoe or I have to have a better watering can, because
that's interesting.
It just everything kind of is like, to get through the story. It's largely pretty simple and streamlined.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that you could definitely. I think that's probably separate from the kind of context dependent tool usage.
Sure.
So it doesn't sound like you're complaining about that, but rather like, you know, I don't want to use the word difficulty curve because like these games are never difficult.
Right.
But like, yeah, in terms of like the energy use it is to do all of your crops, and you know, you're not really pushed into creating large farms and lots of stuff, so you're never really getting into that area of like, oh yeah, I'm running out of energy really quickly on in the day, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I get that.
I guess it just it's I don't know how to maybe it's that my farming sim experience has always kind of been that I gotta like, I don't know, there's like tool management too, that removing that almost just makes it feel like they don't want me to really spend as much time farming and just focus on like their story or advancing the like adventure portion of it. It's almost that like farming feels so secondary to the larger picture of what they're trying to do, which is like create this unique story-driven experience. So I
think that's definitely right, but I think it's a byproduct of the focus on the story rather than any specific mechanic thing.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that maybe part of the tool, not so much the tools, but like the farming aspect of it. Part of what, and maybe this changes later on in the game, and you can tell me if it does, but the fact that I like the idea that you are moving all over to these different locales, and you can at any point, the mechanic is that you pack up your farm into this handheld device, and then you can move to a new locale and open your farm again and on a designated portion of land and resume farming in a completely different locale. And you can do this as many times as you want, as long as you have the materials to feed into the little robot that lets you pack your farm up. But the problem that I have with that is that all of the farming land is predetermined then. So like you don't have any crop customization. You just have what they give you for that locale, which I think the biggest I've seen so far that I am is the beach farm has the most crop space. I thought that it would as you moved to newer locales and like got further into the game, that the crop sizes, the available crop areas would increase, but it's smaller in the desert than it was on the beach, which is weird to me. But
so I would say that there is an end game farm, which is massive. I think you've got something like 250 squares or something like that. So there is definitely a bigger one, but you only get to that once you finish the story.
And is it still like predetermined where the squares are and everything?
Yeah. It's just bigger.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, it's not. It's hard to say if I like don't like that or not. I really like making my farm my own and like customize it. Like that's part of the enjoyment of things like Stardew or like newer Story of Seasons, where you can just kind of. I think that's what
Stardew got done best. Is that like you just have this massive plot of land. You can put things wherever. You can plow whatever land you want, and this one is literally like, that's where your house goes. That's where your one barn goes. And these are your 25 squares for farming in. And I think that also there's only like 6 different places except the end game one where you can put them in the whole map. And this is like a huge map with like so many different areas. And it made it feel like, oh, you can go all over the place. And it's like, well, you can go all over the place as long as you go to one of these 6 specific places that will let you go.
Yeah.
It's like they've advertised this a lot more free than it actually is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that also speaks again to like it's a very condensed game and a very large map.
Yeah.
A very open and empty map.
Yeah. The other thing I would say about the moving of the farm is that I like the idea of it more than the implementation. And even if it was implemented well, I don't think it would work. Except I think it would only work if your farm was basically in like a pocket dimension where you're like actually taking everything and because like when you move your farm, you don't move the crops. It's just the buildings that you move.
Yep.
So unless you were actually picking up and moving everything, including like layout and all of these things, I don't think it would work well, because one of the things that farming games do is I'm starting out with nothing and I'm building something and I'm creating this large empire farm. And that doesn't happen here, right? Like you start off in an area and then you're like, okay, I've done everything I can do here. I need to move. Let me pack up my farm. And then you're like, what do I do with the crops that are here? Do I wait until I've done all these crops and then move? Or do I come back every day to water them? And it doesn't feel like you're building up a farm. It feels like you're going on a journey.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but not what a farming game is. You know?
Right. Yeah, and that's why I think that it's almost like secondary to the story, but it's like they had an idea for like a linear story, and that's what they focused on, and the farming came as like a second mechanic.
Definitely.
So I guess it played second fiddle to to what they're trying to drive you to do.
Yeah.
And but that's where like things like the crop size and stuff like that is weird. So like I said, it's bigger in the beach area. You have more crop space in the beach area than you do in the desert, and it almost made it feel to me like it was really obvious that they wanted me to just they wanted me to spend less time in the desert because there's so few crop spaces. It almost told me that like the story portion in the desert is going to be short. Like just by walking onto the farm and seeing that I had less crop space, I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to be here that long."
Yeah, there's also an issue with the desert area in that there's this thing where basically it's too hot, so you have to like either drink a cold drink or you lose stamina really quickly outside. And the same goes for the cold area. It's too cold, you have to drink a hot drink, and like that forces you not to farm as much.
Yeah.
Which just feels like so wrong. And it also forces you not to explore as much. Like, I don't know the desert area very well because I'm not going to spend lots of time there.
Right. And it's not like you get, because you can get recipes for these hot or cold drinks. So like I got for cold drinks, I got coconut milk because it was the easiest. Yeah. There's so many coconuts in the beach town that that's what I went with. So you can have a bunch of coconut milk on you, but they wear off after a certain amount of time. It's not like you take a drink and you're good for the day. It's after a certain few hours, you have to drink it again. So
there's a couple of things about this. One, there's also, it doesn't give you any indication of when it's running out. It's just, that's it. It's run out. Yep. You're tough. There's no like, oh, it's going to last 5 hours, or there's like a little indicator that flashes when it's nearly done. Like there's nothing like that.
There's not even
so bad.
There's not even an indicator that it's finished. It's just that suddenly you
start losing heat again.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say, and this is something you won't know, in the cold area through the story, you gain a warm jacket. And this negates the negative aspects of that area.
Okay.
There is no such thing for the hot area.
Assumed when I first walked into the desert from the beach.
Yeah.
And I started to lose stamina really fast. And I noticed that they had the little "you're hot" icon or whatever. My immediate assumption was there's going to be something in the story that gives me an item that makes this not the case so that I can just exist in this segment. But once I got to the point where it was like, oh, you got to drink drinks, I was like, okay, so there's just not going to be that item. So it's good to hear at least for the cold area that exists, but
it doesn't for the hot area.
Yeah, that's so strange.
It's really weird.
It really, really feels like the desert was such an afterthought compared to the other areas.
It also features the worst empty space in the between completely. Your farm and like the tiny little town. There is nothing but yellow or orange, like this horrible orange color, and nothing is there. And it's really weird.
And it's hot.
Like, I get
and
it's a desert.
I just don't want to be there.
Your farm is so far away from the town. It's ridiculous. And also, so the other thing is that you, once you've completed the story for an area, you get like a fast travel to that area.
Yeah.
Which is good because I was getting so crazy running between two of the areas before I got the fast travel. And like, if this is what it is, the two areas next to each other, it's going to be horrible when I move even further away, like actually trying to get anywhere.
Yeah.
So thankfully that does exist. But the fast travel place for the desert is really far away from the town again. Yeah. Like it's like on the outskirts. It's like literally the closest you can get to not being in the desert. And it's like right next to the mine. So it's useful for that. And if you want to go to that mine, it's very useful. But you still have so far to go. And there's literally, you have to keep these cold drinks on you. And so you have to be like constantly chugging coconut juice or coconut milk to stay alive. It's so weird.
It's very weird. I assume that there are the decision to put the teleport locations where they are was to make them somewhere at least close to like the next town, so that if you wanted to run to that town, there was like a little, it's like there's like a little bit of leeway on either side, but it doesn't change the fact that they're far enough. This also brings up another point, another mechanic that we haven't talked about yet, in that your stamina reduces just doing anything. Which is awful.
Walking. Oh, it's dreadful.
Yes.
Never in my life have I played a game that reduces your stamina just for walking.
Yes.
Oh, it's the worst.
I mean,
you can be
concept.
You can be.
In concept, it makes sense that you would get tired from walking all over the map, but that doesn't make a fun game.
yeah, exactly. Like, in reality, these plants take a lot longer to grow.
Yeah.
Like, we're not wanting reality. We're not wanting a realistic game. We want a fun game.
Yeah.
But it's like literally, so yeah, you get 2 like warnings when your stamina reduces. Like one, you're getting quite tired, and then there's another one which is like you're exhausted. If you get the exhausted one and you are not very close to your house, you are not getting to bed.
You're doomed. Yeah.
It won't happen. It's especially before you unlock the fast travel.
Yeah, it's really rough. So in instances like that where it places the fast travel spot so far from the town, it takes a huge chunk out of your stamina.
Yes.
So this is all of these things kind of like function hand in hand to contribute to like why these don't work as well as they could. We haven't talked yet about seeds.
Oh yeah, that's the next section. So let's go on to that one.
Okay.
So in a normal farming game, you might get some seeds up front from someone giving you them to you in the tutorial, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, you go to a shop, you buy some seeds, you plant them, you reap them, you make profit. Great. Not so much in this game because nobody understands how crops grow, remember? They don't understand, except they kind of do, but they don't really.
Yeah. It's magic. It's all magic. It really is. So what happens is all around the map, you have the harvest sprites. Is it sprites? Are those ones, I think?
No, wisps. They're the harvest wisps.
Yes. They, probably
there are harvest
legality.
Sprites and harvest wisps and the harvest goddess. All 3 of those exist. Wisps, sprites, and goddess.
Yeah.
So the wisps are the ones that give you seeds. So they're all around the map. You walk up to it and it will give you a seed, a specific seed. Like
just one.
Each of them is just one single seed. And that's how you get your seeds.
And I didn't even know this until I read your notes, but when you sell like 15 of something of a crop, then they'll put it in a shop.
So once you've sold, you can then buy them in a random shop. Good luck finding out which one. You have to go through around all of them to find out which one it is.
Yeah.
And but you have to already have grown and sold 15 of them, not something that you make from them. So like say you want to do strawberries, you have to sell 15 strawberries, not strawberry jam.
Yeah.
Which reduces your profit massively. And then if you actually buy them, every single seed in the shops costs 500. Most items sell for much less than that.
Yes.
So like turnips sell for 80. Turnip salad that you can make, I think, sells for like 150 or something like that. There are very few crops that you can actually make a profit from 500 per seed. So I've managed to do it with 2 things now. So there's one which is like a very specific like broccoli type thing that that sells for 1,600. So you can make a good profit on that one.
Yeah.
And there's a specific type of strawberry that you can make a strawberry milk with that also sells for 1,600. So you can make a good profit off them. The actual strawberry, if you turn that one into strawberry, you don't even need to turn that. If you turn a strawberry into strawberry jam, it sells for the same amount as this strawberry does not turned into strawberry jam. But this strawberry turned into strawberry jam sells for the same amount. It doesn't sell for any more. But turned into strawberry milk, it does sell for more. It's so vastly confusing.
It's very confusing. It's
so yeah, like,
and on top of
getting
that,
these seeds is dreadful.
On top of that, that mechanic. This is why I wanted to talk about it. The mechanic of you obtaining seeds by talking to these wisps and it's the best way to get seeds, and really early on the only way to get seeds.
The only
requires
way,
you to walk all over the map to talk to these little wisps, which takes away stamina. So it really, really limits, and because everything is so spread out, it takes a long time. So like I'm at a point right now where in the story, I actually just last night, we talked about it a couple days ago, and I was complaining that I hit like a wall where I had to grow a specific crop and I couldn't, I got frustrated and put it down because Monster Hunter came out and every Story of Seasons came out, and I was like, I've put a lot of time into this. I'm getting frustrated. I'm gonna stop. Last night I booted it up. I got my watermelons and I was able to advance it. Now I have to grow more crops, but there was I needed specifically 3 watermelons, and there's only like 2 or 3 spots where there are harvest wisps that give you 1 watermelon seed. So,
and they don't spawn every day.
And they are only at certain. Some of them are only at certain times of day.
Yep.
And so
if
you
don't get
have
there by
to
4,
walk.
tough.
One of the nice things that I'll say is that in the map you can set 3 crops as searches that you can.
It's very good.
See on the map exactly where that harvest wisp is, so you can go to it. And once once I knew where the watermelon seeds were, it was a consistent routine of just like going fast traveling to this spot, walking to that seed, getting it, fast traveling to the next spot, whatever. But there are just so few of them that it took so much of my day just to go get 3 seeds to plant. Yeah. Which should not be how this goes.
Nope.
And on top of that, there's just so many mechanics to talk about that it's hard to talk about one thing without talking about the others. But there's mutations in this game, like crop mutations. So crops will grow into specific things depending on the locale and depending on the time of year, the season it is. And that's a really neat idea, and I love that idea, but there's almost no information about it, about how the mutations work. I had to use an online guide for pretty much everything. I was shocked that there was even an online guide for one world crop mutations, but
there is actually information about it after you've grown a mutation. So I found this out. If you go to the book in your house and you click on a crop, it will show you the mutations you've already done, and it will tell you how that happened.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so
growing it in a specific thing will do that.
I did see that on when you're like looking at seeds in your inventory, it can tell you. I think it can tell you like the time of.
Oh, there's a whole other thing. Oh, right. Okay, yes.
The time of so if you select a seed in your inventory, it'll tell you.
Yeah.
I have a watermelon seed that I'm looking at right now. It says seeds that grow into watermelons takes around 4 days to grow to maturity, and then it shows you the terrain and the season that it will grow in. So the terrain,
kind of.
Right. So that's the problem, is that
it you can grow it in those seasons, but you can grow it any plant in any season in any area.
Any crop can be grown at any time, and it will yield a crop, but it will mutate depending on the terrain and the season.
It'll also change how quickly it will grow,
right,
as well.
And you don't know. So,
if you plant something that's meant to be done in the summer, but do it in the winter, it will still grow. It will just grow slower.
Right. So, for it, just to give to help explain this a little bit better, my experience with this was that there was someone in the desert area that required 3 watermelons to advance the story, and so I had to get these watermelon seeds. I got watermelon seeds. I planted them in the desert, I think, and because that's where I was, and it didn't grow into a watermelon. It mutated into a cannonball, which is like I don't know, a mutation of a watermelon. It's a different kind of watermelon. It's not the watermelon that you can give to the person to advance the story. So when I found that, I said, okay, I don't know why maybe it was because I fertilized it and it changed how what it grew into. So then I tried it again, and then it turned into a cannonball again. And because I'm only getting like 3 watermelon seeds a day, I have to really just do, without looking at an online guide, I had to just do trial and error to figure out where and when I could grow just a normal watermelon to advance the story. And there's no information really that tells me exactly when and how it's going to grow.
Yeah. So I think there's 2 things that they could do to improve this. One, why does it have to be a specific watermelon in the story, right? If you've got a story element that has a specific thing, be a little bit flexible around it, right? He doesn't ask for a specific kind of watermelon. He just asks for watermelon.
Yes.
Let him accept any of the watermelons. That would be great. 2, if you've got mutations in the game, maybe give an indication as to what that is.
Yes.
So when you plant something and then you harvest it, maybe have a pop-up that says, oh, you've created a new mutation that you hadn't had before. Look, that's information about what just happened, rather than you being really confused as to why I planted something and it's something different.
Yes.
It goes, oh, congratulations, this is a new mutation. You only need to do it the first time you grow each specific mutation, but there you go. That is an incredibly simple thing to do to make it so much easier to understand what on earth just happened.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, even early in the game when I planted a tomato for the first time and it mutated into a San Marzano, I was like, oh, how did I do that? I have no idea how I did that.
Yeah.
I don't remember planting this specific type of tomato and then I was like, well, maybe I just got a weird seed. I had no information about it. And there's still not really any information about it.
Yeah.
All of the info I got about mutations and how to grow, it clearly, clear information that I got for how to grow what I need to grow, I got from a guide online that happened to someone happened to get all this information down.
This requirements for stories happens multiple times in the story. So there's a time where in the cold area near the end of the story you need to get some wool to make a coat, but so that you can survive in the cold temperature better. But the problem is it's a specific type of wool.
Oh, of course.
So if you've bought a sheep and you have a sheep, chances are that sheep's wool is not good enough. It's a specific sheep that you can only buy in the desert area. And of course, growing a sheep to adult so you can actually get wool from it takes a whole calendar month. So if you get to this point and you don't already have that sheep, it will take you a month and then 4 days to actually get the wool from it to progress the story. And there's nothing you can do to speed it up.
Well, thank you for telling me, because now I'll get that sheep so I can...
Get that sheep now. But the worst bit about that is that you can only... Right, oh my word, we're going all over the place. That's probably most of it for farming. It's a bit weird. Once you're actually farming, it's kind of standard other than the mutation stuff, right? You plow, you plant, you water, it grows. Great.
In the interest...
Whatever. Never actually...
Oh, sorry.
On you go.
I was just going to say, in the interest of not just being negative about the entire experience, which there's a lot to be negative about, I love, again, like almost everything else with this game, I love the concept of you can grow crops in any season, and there are mutations for. I love the idea that there's like different locales in this game. And you can move your farm to a different locale, and depending on the time of year, you can grow a specific crop. On paper, all of this is a fantastic idea.
Absolutely.
It's just the execution is not there.
I like how they've experimented and come up with new ideas. Please do more of that.
Yes.
But when you're doing it, you have to get the basics down. You have to actually make it a fun game to play, even if you're going to do weird stuff, which we definitely want to happen.
Correct.
You've got to make it actually work well. And if you're going to make it like a nice 3D looking game, make it look good, right? Like you don't have to make a 3D game. There are plenty of games that are not 3D that people like. If you're not going to put the time and effort into making a game look good, don't try and pretend it's going to look good. I don't understand it. You can make a game a simple game look good without having all these complicated 3D graphics in it. You don't need to do that. Stardew Valley is not a complicated 3D world. You don't have models. It does, and it looks great. People like how it looks. You don't need to be like this.
Yeah.
You need to get the basics down before you do the other stuff. Absolutely. I think one thing I would also say about the regions and the seasons is that, yeah, I like that as well. And I like how you can plant anything at any point. It'll act differently depending on that. Mm-hmm. What I would say is the information on it is incredibly difficult. Even so, each one will tell you these areas and these seasons. But I have never figured out whether it's you have to have both or whether you have to have one or the other. Like, does it have to be in one of the areas and during one of the seasons? Or is it one of the areas, or is it any area in one of those seasons? I've never figured that out, and I'm still not sure. Because, like, I don't understand how there's an area which is cold and it's always cold, and there's an area that's hot that's always hot. Why do the seasons matter there?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Why can I grow something in a cold area only in the winter? It's always cold. That's literally its point. Why is that? And yeah, just the information on it is just so bad. It's like when you increase the possible vectors, the way of showing that, you have to have a good way of showing that information. Otherwise, it just becomes confusing. When you only have 4 seasons, it's nice and easy. You just say the season.
Right.
When you have 4 seasons and 6 areas, which, by the way, there's an area that nobody in the world has figured out which area this is. There's a forest area. Nobody knows what the forest area is.
Wait.
I just don't know.
What do you mean?
There's a little icon on one or two of the things that's like a forest. It's not the plains, it's not the beach, it's not the desert, it's not the mountain, and it's not the icy area. It's a forest, and we don't know what the forest is. Huh. There's no forest in this game.
Interesting. I guess I never. That never
could be a DLC area, maybe.
There is a forest farm area, but it's like deep and hidden, so maybe it's that. I guess I would assume it's that.
It's not really foresty though.
It's really not, and it's so close.
There are no more trees.
There's no. It's not like a unique location like the others are. It's just like a little farm hidden in the woods that you can
in between 2 areas.
Right. So maybe it's one last thing, but that still seems like a really weird way to.
It's also been inconsistent on, like, I'm sure I've planted something in the right place in the right time, and it's come up with the purple lines that implies that something's going wrong.
Oh yeah.
But one I planted next to it doesn't, so I don't even know what these purple lines mean. Anyway, one last thing I want to talk about in the farming just before we go on to the animals, because there's so much still to talk about. Mm-hmm. This is dreadful. Is that the end game area is all of the regions, so you can plant any plant in that area. So like beach stuff will grow there, the mountain stuff will grow there, the desert stuff will grow there. That's really great, but you still have to pay attention to the seasons.
Oh, okay. So I am curious,
but it didn't tell you that to start with. It literally, the way it tells you is everything can grow here. Huh. So I was like, oh, great. I can just plant everything. So I went and planted everything. And then suddenly I had some crops not growing as quickly as they should. And it turns out it's because it was the season. And I don't understand how season can affect things if it's something that needs to grow in the snow, but it's something I can grow in the fall in the snowy area. I can grow it in the fall in this area, but it's not. I don't understand what the logic is behind it.
Yeah. So I have a question for you that I don't. So I'm. At where I'm at in the game, I just hit fall.
Yeah.
I have not encountered any seasonal weather changes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just because there is no seasonal weather changes in the areas that like it's tied to the towns, or.
So there are seasonal weather changes in a few of the areas.
Okay.
So the first area, Callison, that changes like a standard farming game does.
Okay.
So if you go back there, you'll notice it's very different, especially in the winter. And there are a few smaller things. So the area that is next, the Lebkuchen area, mm-hmm. That like the trees look different in different seasons.
Okay.
That's about it.
Yeah, I was wondering because I hadn't noticed. I mean, I thought maybe just because like spring and summer maybe seem just similar enough that like I didn't notice it, and fall isn't.
I think the beach, the desert, and the tundra, none of them change throughout the year. Callison changes like you would expect it to, and Leibkuchen changes very slightly.
Huh. It's weird.
Yeah. It is weird.
It's like it's like a really ambitious concept that they just didn't they couldn't do. I don't know.
They didn't have the basics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, let's rush through all the other mechanics things.
Sure.
Animals kind of work how you expect animals to work. There's nothing really special about them, other than you have one building for all your animals. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Except there are so few spaces.
Yeah.
And it takes so long to be able to upgrade that building.
I have not gotten to a point where I can upgrade it, so I don't know what it takes. I just have. I don't even really have that much as far as livestock goes. I've got 3 chickens and 2 cows, and I just kind of that was it.
So I ended up getting a cow, a horse, and a sheep. And then I got to the area where you need a second sheep or a different sheep. And so I had to get rid of my horse because I couldn't upgrade my house at that point. And there was no way for me to progress the story. And you needed to progress the story to upgrade the barn.
Sure. Of course.
So I had to sell my horse.
Huh.
It's dreadful.
That sounds terrible. I don't understand why that would ever have to be the...
Yeah. I don't know why. Why can't you upgrade it? The other thing is when you upgrade the barn, it's the weirdest thing. You basically create a second barn within the barn. So you walk into the barn and it looks like nothing has changed. Except if you go all the way to the very left, there's a door. You go through that door and you're in a different barn.
Oh, strange.
It doesn't just... like most farming games, they just like make it slightly bigger or you can build a second barn. But this is like a second barn within your barn. And it's really weird and confusing.
Yeah, that's
weird. And
weird.
it leads to a really annoying thing in that you know how you can ring the bell to get your animals to go outside and spend some time outside?
Uh-huh.
If you have your upgraded barn, there are 2 upgrades. You can have 1 and then you can have 2 areas in the barn. Then you can have a 3rd area. If you go and ring the bell to get them out, you then go to another area. Those animals are still in the barn. You ring the bell to get those ones out. You go back to the first area and those animals are back in the barn. Huh. You can't have all your animals outside at once.
I never let my livestock out, so I never encountered that.
Well,
I don't have the barn upgrade anyway, so it doesn't matter. But
it's useful because it helps their friendship go up.
Sure.
You don't need to do as much with them to keep their friendship up. But like you can't have them all, so you have to like have them out for half the day. And also, I don't understand putting them out because it implied in the game that if you put them out, they graze on grass, but they never seem to graze on grass. If they don't feed inside, they always seem to be hungry. And it's just like with everything in this game, there's so little information, and it implies something, and the opposite happens.
Yeah,
I'm very confused.
It is. Yeah, that's confusing. It just feels like they had really good ideas and they got like halfway there in implementation.
Yeah.
That just kind of seems to be the theme. There was another, as far as animals go, there are pets in the game.
I didn't do any of them, so you're alone on this one.
So I just got to the pets function similarly. It's not the same as, previous games where like or other farming games where like you start out with a pet, or you can just go to like a pet store and buy a pet, or one is inherited to you or something. It's the way that it functions is the pets are like NPCs in the world, so they have schedules. They are in certain areas at certain times. So like the first thing that I really encountered was a bear in a little wooded area to the left of the starting farm. And you can interact with the animals when you encounter them, and it will increase their friendship just a little bit. So because I kept going to that area to buy apples to get money, or to get apples from the trees to sell them for money, for like easy money. I would see the bear all the time, so I interacted with the bear. And then eventually I found that there was like a cat on the way to the next area that showed up only at night, and there's a tiger in some areas. There's all these like wild animals all over the world that have set schedules that you can interact with, and eventually if you interact with them enough, you can make them your pet. So I just recently interacted with this bear enough times that it just gave me a pop-up after petting it or whatever, and it says, "This bear is now tame. Would you like to make it your pet?" And that's it. It just you make it your pet, which is like neat, but I didn't
change anything though?
I don't know. I didn't accept it because I was like, "Oh, that's just how this works." I don't know that I want my first pet to be a bear. So I'm going to go explore the other pets. That's really weird. And I don't know
you can essentially adopt a wild animal.
Right. And I don't know how it works either. So I don't know, like, if I accept the bear, does that prevent me from having any of the other pets? Do I have to exchange pets? Does it, you know?
I guess I'm not finished with this game then. I need to figure that one
out. So, like, you do have, from the start in the game, you do have like a food bowl in your house for a pet that just is never used until, I'm assuming, a pet is added.
Yes.
But it just was funny to me that, like, there's, you know, cats and dogs and whatever, like rabbits and things in other farming games as pets, but like the first thing that you really get a chance to tame is a wild bear. And it's a big bear. Like, it's not just, you know, it's like a proportionately, it's a normal sized bear that I would just, I guess, keep in my house that would eat out of a dog bowl.
Yeah. I don't know. I might spend some time trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
I've not spent, I petted a few of them a few times, but I don't really care about that. So I've not done that.
Yeah. But again, it's the same kind of like NPC system where you don't really know where they are or when they are. And the difference with this too is that they don't show up on the map the same way that NPCs do. Yeah. So it'll like tell you for NPCs roughly what locale they're in. So you know that they're there, or you know that they're like on the map at that time. But they don't have that for the animals. So you kind of just have to like wander into them and then take note of what time of day it was and then go find them again. So there's, I'm sure, plenty of animals that I haven't seen because I just haven't been in an area at the right time to see it. So it's a little weird in that. Also, there's not it just seems to be like wild animals. There's not really like a traditional, like, you know, I've always liked, you know, get a dog or a cat and name it after my pets and make it my pet. You know, kind of like add some of my own personality to it by having my actual real world pet in the game. But this is just like bears and tigers and like I don't know, wild cats, and which is still cool and unique, but it's just, you know, can I have the option to also just like go buy a dog?
Yeah, there are dogs and cats in the game.
Oh, okay.
In some point, but I can't remember where or when they are.
Okay.
And I don't know whether you can get them if you've already got a wild animal as a pet.
Yeah.
Because I've not done that. But yeah, no, you can just get dogs and cats, but they're at some of the animal shops, and I can't remember which. It might be in Lebkuchen. Is there an animal shop there?
Okay.
Maybe there's not. I don't know. They say
I've just wandered into I don't know how to Lebkuchen. I thought it was Lebkuchen because
Lebkuchen is what I said, but
because like Baumkuchen is the cake. I thought maybe that was like.
I have no idea what you're talking about there.
Oh yeah, there's a like type of dessert that's a Baumkuchen. It's like spelled similar. I think Kuchen is like, it's just German for cake.
Okay.
But I just wandered in there. I didn't talk to anybody.
Yeah,
I got tired of being in the desert, so I just wandered into the next town.
Fair, I get that. I actually did the desert area last in the game.
Yeah.
But
you saved
part
the
of the
best
issue
for
is
last.
you can't move on. You feel like you can't move on until you finish the story, because then you can't fast travel back to that area yet.
Yeah. Yep.
Mining.
I have done next to none, so this is all you.
Mining is fine. It kind of works how most mining works. There are rocks that you smash and you get stuff out of them. There are 3 different mines in this one, which give you different rarities of stuff. The first mine is only like 10 levels. The second one is only 40 levels, and the last one is 100 levels. They save every 10 levels. Although because it starts at 1, it saves at 11 and then 21 and 31 rather than the 10s.
Oh, sure.
Which is a bit weird, but whatever. Because there's no level 0. So that's fine. It's fine. The only weird thing I think about the mining is that to get from ore, well, apart from the fact that it has bronze ore, which is not a thing, there are multiple ores in this game that are actually not a thing, and there are multiple different metals joined together, so I don't know how it exists. Iron as well. No, iron is a whatnot.
Magic.
I was thinking steel, but yeah, the idea of like finding bronze in the earth is kind of ridiculous, but whatever. Other than that, it's weird in that you can't turn them into the bars yourself. You have to go to, like, there's a professor, the doctor, he calls him Doc Junior.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go to their place and pay them to turn them into the bars and the gems and stuff like that.
Yes,
which is all just weird, especially for the gems, which the whole point of gems in these games is to make money.
Yeah.
So why am I paying money to make money? I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But whatever.
And there's some just like kind of like not anything terrible, but it's just weird that like in order to so that you'll get like requests from people. So like Doc Jr. will send you a request for like, I need 5 bronze plates or whatever, 5 bronze material, and in order to do that, you have to go to his house, and before you give it to him, you have to convert it to pay money to convert it, and then hand it to him.
You paying him to give something that he wasn't asked for in the first place.
It's
so weird.
It's very
and there's
strange.
no, as far as I know, there's no way that you unlock a thing later on to do it without paying. That's just something that happens forever. I mean, at some point it stops caring, right?
Yeah.
If you grow a lot of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I had seen that there were in some like online discussion. I saw that there was like there's specific miners that you have to talk to for specific things,
right,
outside of the mines. Okay. But I have put almost no time into mining.
Let's talk tool upgrades.
Okay.
So apart from the fact that we've already discussed that in many cases you don't actually care about it because it doesn't make much difference. You do actually need to do it to progress some of the story.
Okay.
To finish the story.
Great.
And you have to talk to specific people outside of specific mines after you've done specific things within the story, but before you've done other specific parts, although I don't think you can lock yourself out of it. But like, and it's different ones you have to talk to at different points to get different upgrades to your tools. So like you basically do a puzzle to be given the opportunity to then pay them in materials to then give you a recipe, which you then use to use other materials to upgrade your tools. It's so convoluted. It's very odd.
Is it?
Like, and sometimes you have to get to specific points in the story before you can unlock certain tool upgrades. But then you also have to wait multiple days in many cases before they'll do it. It's so weirdly convoluted.
Is it also that you, in order to get certain, did I read right that in order to get certain upgrades, you have to be at a specific friendship level with, or is that not true?
I don't know if that's the case or not.
Okay.
I know that you have to progress the story. So, for example, some of it happens with the desert area mines.
Okay.
And so you have to have progressed that, finished that part of the story before you can do that bit. I do not know about any friendship level stuff. It might be that I was at the right friendship level already.
Okay. Yeah, I'd seen that there was, all right, at least in the discussions that I saw about it, people were talking about like, oh, in order to upgrade this specific thing, you have to be at this friendship level with this specific miner, which I guess I didn't really realize. I've put in almost no time into like friendship levels either, so
yeah, I did it after I completed the story because I wanted to have been married just to talk about it.
Sure,
but
yeah.
Other than that, I didn't care.
Well, it's good to hear that it's not. I guess it's not locked at least too hard.
I haven't noticed.
Levels.
It's very easy to get people up friendship levels as well. Like, within like 2 weeks, you can go from 0 to 5 hearts.
That's pretty
it's
good.
like really quick.
Yeah.
If you give them their loved item every day, it's so easy.
Okay.
To get there. I finished the story, and within 2 weeks, I was married.
Is there
having never cared about it before?
Is there an indication of what? Oh, I just saw it. I answered my own question. Seeing likes and dislikes, it does say.
Yeah.
In the making
friends
so it is
section, it is good about that.
iPad or whatever it is that you have.
Yeah, and the one that I married, Kersey, I think it is Kersey, likes every ore. This is one in the cold area, so you won't have met her yet.
Okay.
Likes every ore, which includes stone. So I could just give her a rock every day, and she would love it. It was great.
Perfect.
Right, so I guess we're talking about marriage.
I was going to say, it seems like a good segue too.
It's fine. It's very easy to get up there. The one thing I would say is it's very heteronormative. There's no same-sex relationships at all.
Yeah.
Other than just friendship.
It's
just doesn't exist.
This was like a make or break for a lot of people, and it probably would have been a make or break for me too had I not wanted to like talk about it and experience it, so that it was something that we could talk about for the podcast. But what threw me off about this is that the reasoning that they gave for it was just kind of shameful. I don't know if you read about why they
I didn't actually read that, no.
Okay, so they had said that the reason that there was no same-sex marriage in this game is because of the pandemic, they had to cut certain features. So
what?
My problem with that is
what?
It's not a feature. The feature is the marriage.
Well, that's the thing. Everything exists. Literally, it's
yeah.
The marriage exists.
Exactly.
All of the characters exist. All of their heart events exist. The mechanics to raise friendship levels exist. All it does is which one of them you can do depending on that makes no sense whatsoever. That's one if statement that they've specifically implemented to disable it. That is a shameful excuse.
It really is. I was
that's dreadful.
Floored by it. I was like, how does that
I don't
make sense.
Like,
I don't.
That sounds to me like they didn't want the feature for some specific reason, and they didn't want to say that, and so they thought up some excuse that people would just go, "Oh, okay, we won't give them. We'll give them a pass on this because the pandemic's been hard on everyone." No, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah. So they said, here's a direct quote from this was a Polygon interview with the Natsume developer. And they said, we wanted to do it right as opposed to just doing it for the sake of doing it, if that makes any sense. Said Vice President of Natsume Inc. Operations, Graham
So we
Marque.
just didn't do it in the first place.
So I'm fairly confident, 99%, it'll be in the next game. Marque noted that same-sex marriage was originally discussed to be in one world, but due to COVID-19 related complications and the required shift in communication, it was one of the features that got cut, which doesn't make sense to me for a couple of reasons. Because I mean, like you touched on it, it's everything is there for it. If you're saying to me that they had to cut marriage as a feature, that makes more sense to me. Because that's the feature.
Yeah.
But literally not being able to, not having the time to just program these characters as romanceable regardless of your gender makes no sense to me.
It's dreadful.
That's
shameful.
It's awful. So alone gave me like a really terrible taste.
If you don't want to implement, if you don't want to have same-sex relationships in your game, say that.
Just, yeah.
Right?
Just
don't
Don't say anything.
We'll disagree with you, and people will probably boycott the game for that.
Right.
That's fine, but don't pretend. Don't act like we're dumb and that we don't understand what you're doing here.
Yes.
This is so stupid.
It would almost be better if they just didn't say anything at all. If they just didn't say just left it as or they used the Japan excuse. Right, that we didn't want it because it's not legal in Japan. We didn't want them to. It's not legal everywhere, so we didn't want at least use a pathetic excuse like that. I mean, we'll still see through it, but we won't be this as angry as I currently am because you're downright lying to us here. That's not a thing. I just couldn't believe when I read that. I was like, "Are you kidding?" Who thought that would pass as like an appropriate response to the.
Right.
And then to say, if we're going to do it at all, we want to do it right. What is there to do right? Just let your character marry any character that is romanceable. Are you going to
change the heart events?
Maybe. I don't know.
What are you doing?
I
don't understand.
I don't get it.
Right.
And it's not
I'm in a bad mood now.
So this brings up like the characters too. It's not like the characters are any really like super unique. I would say the most unique character is
not that interesting.
Doc Jr. And I think
who you can't even marry.
Right. And I think the only like thing about Doc Jr. is that's kind of interesting to me is that character, well, they're like kind of wacky like scientist character, but that character is very clearly either the son or relative or descendant or whatever of the doctor from previous modern Harvest Moon games.
Yeah.
So that in its own is like kind of a neat semi-unique thing, but all of the other characters are so bland that it's boring. Not really. There's no real like a drive for me, even beyond like just having not really much time to pursue friendships. There's not really much drive for me to want to pursue them aside from just the like achievement of being able to see marriage through in the game, like get to that point in the game.
I mean, that's why I did it. Yeah. Right? I wasn't interested. I chose the one that was easiest to do and get it done after I'd finished the story.
Right.
Right. This has put me in a bad mood. So I want to talk about quests,
that you
and then we're done.
You hadn't heard that. That's
I'm really glad I hadn't heard it because I feel like I wouldn't have been able to do this podcast with that in my mind. So let's talk about quests because I think that's the only other interesting thing that we've not talked about. Because everything else is like fishing. It's really kind of rubbish. It's weird. It's just not fun. Cooking is fine. It's not that interesting.
It's really not.
We've talked about the upgrading buildings and tools. Am I missing anything other than quests?
Not that I've encountered, I guess.
Right. The quests I like in a way, and I also hate in a way.
Yes.
Like with everything in this game.
Yep.
So you get story quests and you get other quests. And I really like how it stores everything. So you don't have to like remember what quests are. You can see them in your menu. I really like that.
And it tells you exactly what reward you're going to get too, which is...
Yes. It's very good. It also, you can select a quest and say like you can activate a quest, and that will show you on the map where the person that you need to go talk to is, which is really good. Except, we haven't even talked about naming. Oh my word! Right, some people in this game are just not named.
Oh yeah,
there are people who are like inquisitive man and overexcited old man.
Yeah,
and like sensitive woman, and also there's literally one character, I can't remember what she's named by being the mum of someone else. I can't remember, is it Saeed or is it someone else? I can't remember. I don't think it's Saeed. I think he's a different character, but let's say it's Saeed.
Okay.
His mum's character is literally called Saeed's mum. That's it. That's her name. Which is utterly dreadful. Name your characters if you're going to have them. Literally, have a random name generator. There are a lot of names.
Yeah.
Just have any name. Anyway, that's beside the point because if a character isn't... Like, some characters only exist anywhere at certain times of the day. So there's a specific man who has a lot of quests who stands by a bridge, but he's only there for like 4 hours in the day. And the rest of the day, he doesn't exist.
Yeah.
He's nowhere. And you have no way of knowing where he's going to be and when, except, boom, he's on the map. You can see on the map that there's a question mark or an exclamation mark there. And you can go there and talk to them. You don't know when that's going to appear, so you have to just keep checking the map.
And, you know, he could just disappear out of thin air as you're
walking up to him. He doesn't walk away. It's just the absolute worst. There are multiple quests where I took literally a week to actually get them done because I was trying to figure out where they were. I had to Google some of these to figure out where is overexcited old man. I just like it's just, not having names makes it so much harder to Google as well. It's just so weird.
It is very weird. I will say that I stopped doing, so there's the to-do list, which is the main quests. And then there's the requests, which are the like side quests. Yeah. And I stopped doing the requests almost immediately. There are a few that I did that were for like very clearly like story advancement or like mechanic advancement. And I'll still do those as they're needed. So like, but even then, a lot of them are like, oh, I just need a favor from you. Can you give me some eggplants and I'll give you some lumber? Yeah. And I'm like, I don't really need lumber. This seems like a waste of time. I'm not going to do it.
What I would say is keep doing the Doc Junior ones because you need to keep doing them to do the like house upgrades and stuff like that. None of them will happen if you stop doing the Doc. Even the random ones, it's like some wood for some other wood. Yeah. You need to do them otherwise. And you need to do them all like a specific number of times before you can upgrade things. It's really weird.
Yeah, so like one of them is like we said earlier, one of them is the bridge. Like if you bring ginkgo lumber to this person as for their request, then it's woman from Calisan. If you bring woman from Calisan for ginkgo lumber, she will build you fix the bridge that connects to Lebkuchen. But so you can get early on it. Like one of the requests that I got was if I gave Brayden, who's a romanceable character, 4 sunflowers, then he would give me 10 ginkgo lumber, which I could then use for the request to build the bridge. But I didn't know where sunflowers were, so I was just like, I never encountered them, so I was like, I'm not even gonna bother with it. It just some of it's just like you know, someone wants a specific fish and they'll give you some seeds or something.
Other fish, there are a few recipe ones which are good, but like it's mostly just like a way to get them. Like there's useful ones where they'll take tomatoes and give you 20 iced tomato seeds so you can like build up more seeds that way, which is very useful. But they're very few and far between. And the worst bit about it is they all come back. So like you can never complete all of these quests.
Yeah, they're like infinitely repeating, which is once I saw that, that immediately turned me off to it. I was like, I was like, I'm done. I have no desire to continue this like infinite loop of like wasting time when there's plenty more things to do in the game that I haven't done yet.
But I can get some more seeds. Well, I can find them on the ground.
It's just kind of a shame though that like they lump like advancement, like mechanic or story advancement requests into the request list and not the like main quest to-do list.
Yes.
So like one of
I don't
the
know why
ones
they don't do that.
that I have is Raz, who's one of the miners, and it says if I give him 10 material stone, then he'll give me rare ore refining recipes, which is like, that seems like kind of it'll teach me how to refine rare ore, which is kind of an important thing. So why is that in the request list and not in the to-do list?
Yep, it's the same with the tool upgrades, and there's like Doc Junior will give you some things to unlock actual things that you need for the story, and it doesn't come in the main quest line.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I don't either.
It is so very weird.
It's a lot of things that are just like not clear, and I almost feel like really the like overarching feeling that I have about this game is that there was such a short time from like development to announcement to release, almost like they were just trying to rush it out to beat, I don't know, to beat the new Story of Seasons or something. Like, it almost felt like they rushed it to get it out early, that they just cut a lot of corners, and just a lot of it just feels really rushed, and I can't really figure out why they would rush it, other than just that they were trying to, get it out as soon as possible. But
I'm incredibly disappointed by this game because it had so much promise.
It really did.
And I was promised a great game. I was promised, a new era of Harvest Moon. I was promised this new exciting way of playing farming games.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just more of the same, but with some gimmicks that don't even work very well and are confusing, and I don't understand it.
Yeah.
So I guess this is where we would normally say, hey, go buy this game. And I would say, I wouldn't bother.
I wouldn't either. At this point,
like,
if it's something that you really, really want to try, and you're not turned off to like the really like terrible explanation for why they don't have something as basic as same-sex marriage in the game, or you just really want to see what like the experience is like trying to for this like new era of Harvest Moon game, or like what they're trying to do. Wait for like bargain bin price. It is absolutely not worth
definitely
the AAA release price tag that it has.
I typically tell people that I buy physical games when I think I'm going to sell them, and I buy digital games when I didn't. I bought this physically, and I'm very happy I did. and that's all I have to say on the matter.
Yep. I'm shocked that they're even still doing physical releases for the Harvest Moon game specifically. Like,
I'm not complaining.
Me neither. It just seems like it would be something that they would, for all of the attempts to make a quick buck that it seems like Natsume has been doing. Cutting out physical distribution seems like it would be one of the decisions that they would make. But it's good that they didn't. However, it is at retail at launch. It is a $50 USD game, which is an absurd amount of money for what it is.
Legitimately, if I didn't do the podcast, I wouldn't have bought this game.
I wouldn't have either. Even just like, how many hours would you say it took you to beat it? To like beat the story?
This is a good question. I'll go check in the Switch, shall I? See what I've got. 40 hours or more, according to the Switch.
Okay. And have you done a lot past the story?
No.
Okay.
I've upgraded all my buildings. I've got married, and that maybe took me a season in the game. I have gone through a year and a half in the game.
Sure.
In 40 hours.
It just seems like it's very short for even if it were a very good game, for how linear the story is. It seems like it's a very short experience.
I don't think it would be if it was fun. I think that's the problem, right? The story is fine. It's not that interesting. It's not that compelling, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Right? But the problem is that once you're done the story, you don't want to keep playing because it's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the point of Stardew, the point of Story of Seasons is that they are fun. They have a very enjoyable core game loop of farming.
Yeah.
This is not a fun farming game because you can't do crops in the way that you normally do crops. Or if you do, you can't make profit out of it because the seeds are so expensive. Right? Like, they need to get the core game loop fun before they tack on all the other stuff. Otherwise, you're just going to do what I did, finish the story and go, oh, well, and then go to the secondhand store and go sell it. Like, they don't want that.
Yeah, right.
And I'm never going to even consider getting the DLC because it's just more of the same. I don't want more of the same.
Yeah.
Because the same isn't fun.
Yeah, it's just shocking to me too. Like there is no one world where I can Sorry. Where I can recommend that anybody buy this at a $50 price tag. Even I would say even like a $30 price tag. Maybe $20. We're starting to get into like a price range that
it's if you like to watch car crashes, it's worth the money for that.
Perfect.
Right. I'm bored of this now. I'm tired. Thank you, Micah, for joining me.
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry that it was on such a soul-crushing note.
Look, it's fine. We're going to make this up next time.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with hopefully more fun, even if there will definitely be some things that we won't like about this game, but hopefully it actually has some soul in it, unlike this game.
Yeah.
This is your regular reminder that the Natsume Harvest Moon games are not bad because they are not Story of Seasons. They are bad because they are just bad games.
Yes, they are.
Don't not buy them because they aren't Story of Seasons. Don't buy them because they are actively bad games. This is why I never get review copies of games.
It's the honesty is the real importance.
You come here for the true, honest opinions.
Yeah.
I think this is the first episode we've had where both people have disliked the game, by the way.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate because I really, really wanted to like
impressive. Yep, I wanted to as well, and I was all ready to like it, and I think I have low standards.
I absolutely was prepared to give them a second chance for, this was like their reboot.
And give them the benefit of the doubt as well.
Early on in when it launched, I had messaged you on Twitter, and I said, I have a lot of things to say about this, and that at that point, it was a very good mix of like positive and negative things, and then very quickly after that, it became just a lot of negative things.
Yeah.
But the initial like honeymoon phase for it is like, this is unique enough that it feels fun, but after like a few hours with it, it wears off pretty quickly. So
yeah, definitely.
Too bad.
Right. Anyway, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having
me. Where
me.
can people find you on the internet, Micah?
You can find me mostly on Twitter at Micah the Brave, MICAH the Brave. Sometimes very, very rarely, I stream on Twitch when I feel like it. Just random things. The last time I streamed was building a model.
Oh, yes.
So not always video games,
the noodles.
but that's also twitch.tv/Micah the Brave. And that's, I don't know, kind of pretty much the only places that I exist on the internet.
Cool. You can find me on Twitter at the ScottBot. Scott has 1 T. You can find the podcast on Twitter at THSPod. Feel free to correct me in any of these because it's like nearly tomorrow and I'm tired.
Oh yeah, it's getting late there.
You can email us from our website, harvestseason.club. You can also find links to many things there, including our show notes and our Patreon if you want to support us that way. We obviously welcome all kinds of support, not just financial, but just listening is support, and reviewing, sharing, and stuff. So thank you to everybody who supports us in any way.
Yeah, thank you so much.
If you do support us on the Patreon, you get access to our bonus podcast, The Greenhouse, and in our next episode of The Greenhouse, me and Micah talk about fitness apps on the Switch.
And have a lot to say about it.
That. There is a lot to say about it. Look, there's a reason that we've been recording now for 4 hours and this podcast is only slightly over 2 hours, right?
It's a lot of, if you're looking for maybe more positive takes, the Switch fitness apps have them.
I use Skype recordings as a backup, and I didn't realize that Skype recordings has an upper limit of 4 hours.
Oh.
So that's good to know.
And somehow we hit it.
Yeah. Right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Micah, again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to bed.
Have a good night, hopefully.
Until next time, have a good
harvest.
The Harvest Season is created by Rochelle Delaney and Al McKinley, with support from our Pro Farmer Level patrons, Kevin and Stuart. Our art is done by Micah the Brave, and our music is done by Nick Burgess. Feel free to visit our website, harvestseason.club, for show notes and links to things we discussed in this episode. Thanks for listening.
Right, I'm gonna go sell